Ark Invest Cathie Wood has been heavily buying this beaten down growth stock recently. And I'll be honest, after spending some time understanding this business a bit better, understanding what they do and understanding their value that they bring, I'm starting to see why they're so bullish. This stock honestly has the opportunity to easily double in the next year, possibly 10x in the next few years, because the market is there. They are offering something that's unique. They are offering something that is better than the competition, in my opinion. So let's talk about this stock today. More specifically, what I want to discuss is, first off, of course, what is this stock? Let's do the big reveal. And I'll also talk about how much Ark Invest is buying with this stock. But then more importantly, we're going to go around to talking about what the potential is for this company and this stock, in my opinion. And then finally, guys, at the end of this, I will share with you my plans for this stock. I will share if I'm buying, and you want to stick around for this because you probably would be a bit surprised. Drop a like down below, guys. Share this video with a friend as well who's looking for a possible massive opportunity in the market. And like I said, you want to watch this video the entire way through because there's tons of value here that I'm going to share. So without wasting any more time, let's reveal what this stock is and talk about how much Ark is buying. Slack is the stock we're talking about today, and there's been so much buzz around this company recently, so I want to explain why it's caught my attention as well. Over the last few weeks, Ark has been building a sizable position in Slack, and when I say sizable, I mean Ark has been growing this to a top 10 position in one of their ETF holdings, which is huge. Here you can see the Slack is sitting at number 9 in this ETF with a market value of over $100 million. And that's a big bet on this tech play here. With the aggressive buying that Ark has done recently, I wouldn't be surprised to see this position get even larger over time. There's just some potential here that Ark sees that most people are not seeing yet with Slack to cause them to put so much money into this company so quickly. So this leads me to my next point. What is the potential I see for this stock? So guys, I spent a good amount of time researching this company, looking at their fundamentals, looking at their financials, watching interviews on their CEO, understanding their product, understanding their competitive advantage, and I want to summarize all of my thoughts here for you in this video. So if you are a Slack investor, considering investing in Slack, or you're someone that's invested in Microsoft Teams, you definitely want to pay attention here. So I brought up the dreaded M word, Microsoft. So let's talk. This is one of the biggest topics when it comes to Slack. They're up against $1 trillion giant, Microsoft, with their Teams offering. And really, because I keep seeing this comparison drawn, I want to spend some time discussing this in more detail so you get a clearer picture of what's going on. Microsoft is a closed ecosystem. They want everyone to be fully invested in their products, their whole suite, from Office to Outlook to Teams to OneDrive. Microsoft wants everything to be in their ecosystem. Slack has taken a completely different approach. They have an open ecosystem. They want to integrate with as many third parties as possible, and they want to be focused on doing just one thing really well, which is improving the efficiency of communication at a business. There's pros and cons to both of these types of ecosystems, and the easiest comparison I can really draw that everyone's familiar with is the constant battle between Apple and Google with iOS and Android. Apple obviously is a closed ecosystem. They control everything on here, and they don't like anyone touching and modifying things, which is similar to what Microsoft's done. But then you have Android on the other end, which is the opposite. It allows you to customize pretty much anything. You can integrate anything into it, and it's a very developer-friendly open platform. But does that make one better than the other? Well, for certain situations, absolutely. But for other situations, maybe not. The important thing to note is that both ecosystems are thriving, both ecosystems can coexist, and both ecosystems actually benefit from having the other because it increases competition and increases innovation. So when I think of the whole Microsoft versus Slack argument, I see it this way. Some companies have been a long-time customers and users of Microsoft products, right? They've been using Microsoft Word forever, Excel, Outlook, OneDrive, and probably even Link, Skype for Business, which is now transformed into Teams. They've been on this ecosystem for a very long time, and this is one of the key advantages Microsoft has. They have that massive customer base. They have many years of building up those customers to trust Microsoft. And honestly, I don't think those type of customers are going to be shifting over to Slack. Think about it. If you have a company that's, tens of thousands of employees. You've spent countless amount of money and hours training those employees on how to use Microsoft products. You're not going to just go there and, remove all of Microsoft and put some new stuff in like Slack, train everyone all over again, because that'll just lead to a lot of cost and wasted time at the end of the day. So I honestly don't see large organizations that are heavily invested in Microsoft switching over to Slack. Also, Microsoft has built such a strong reputation of, having everything secure. So when you look at a large company that's using Outlook, for example, it's very unlikely that they're going to switch and use Gmail. So that just keeps them still in the Microsoft ecosystem. And then Microsoft's like, hey, if you're using Outlook, use Teams as well. It integrates well together. It plays nice, and you can probably improve your efficiency as well within the organization. So these typical larger, older companies are like, hey, yeah, let's do that. That makes sense to me. But honestly, that's fine. I don't think that's a problem. I think there's a need for that in the market. Microsoft solved that need. But there is a different segment out there which Slack fits into. Think of all the smaller companies, all the startups, all these companies with a few hundred employees maybe, that are out there looking for products like Microsoft offers, but they just don't want to invest in that ecosystem. They just don't have the capital for that. And maybe they use a whole bunch of applications that just don't play well with Microsoft. Companies nowadays that have been created in the last few years use a ton of other products out there, guys. GitHub, Zoom, Asana, Dropbox, Gmail, the list goes on and on and on. And these companies have pretty much hand chosen what makes the best sense for them. And they've kind of put that all together, and like, this is what their staff is going to use, and this is what they train their staff on. And if you look at it from a company's perspective that's using all these platforms, you don't want to go to a company like Microsoft that discourages the use of third parties. You want to go to a company that actually embraces all these other applications, integrates it well, and helps improve your efficiencies even more. And that's exactly what Slack does. I think this is pretty much Slack's bread and butter market to go after. Companies that believe strongly in the open ecosystem, companies that realize, hey, Gmail is better for certain situations for our use case than using Outlook. And Zoom is better for video conferencing versus Teams. So we want to keep using those products, but we want to still have the option of communicating with each other. And guys, that's where Slack fits in. That's exactly Slack's value proposition. And think of it this way, as an organization grows, maybe there are a couple hundred employees today, but they become more successful. Think Shopify, for example, they become a massive giant. The company keeps growing, they keep adding more users, and guess who benefits from that? Slack does. As a company keeps growing, they add more users in, they pay for those users, and Slack's revenue grows, and that becomes a more lucrative customer for them. So that's a huge advantage of Slack, and I think it's smart for them to go after these smaller companies because they can take advantage of them growing over time. So really, the way I see it, I think that both Slack and Teams can coexist, just like how the iPhone and Android can coexist, and both companies can actually thrive, provide value, compete with each other, and continue innovating for us as consumers to benefit from. Now, another benefit that I want to touch on is that Slack has designed their platform to be like a social media platform. It's easy to chat, easy to escalate to a video call, everything's integrated in there. It's almost like you're on WhatsApp or something when you're trying to discuss something with your peers. This is powerful because this is how millennials and Gen Zs prefer to communicate. Emails are not really a thing that most of that age demographic wants to use. And Slack has taken advantage of this, they've successfully replicated this, and I think that's why they've seen so much success, especially amongst smaller and newer companies. The other thing I really want to spend some time on here is Slack Connect, and I think this is something that's going to differentiate them even more in the future. So right now, if two different organizations want to work together on a project, what do? Well, you have a meeting scheduled, you have a conference call, you discuss what we're gonna do, and then you say, hey, okay, we'll touch base once a week to figure out what's going on, what the progress is, and what we need to do for the following week. That's an okay approach, but that's definitely not the most efficient approach, because during that week, you have no idea what's happening, you just assume that everyone's on track, and then you find out at the end of the week what actually happened. You realistically can't have constant communication because you're not going to send an email back and forth every few minutes when you're working on something or a couple times an hour. Like, it's just going to clog up your inbox. It's going to be too much and people are going to start ignoring those emails. Well, what Slack Connect does is it allows both organizations to connect their Slack platforms and have a secure shared channel between both companies so they can leverage Slack, all the benefits of Slack, and get things done much quicker. All of a sudden, this changes from, hey, let's meet up once a week. to chatting daily, multiple times a day, so you know exactly how things are progressing at any given point. Guys, this is a leapfrog in efficiency improvement, and it's a powerful shift with how companies work together on projects. And guess what? There's some projects you work on, there's going to be lawyers involved, consultants, contractors. There's many different organizations involved. And with Slack Connect, you can actually have, I believe, up to 20 different organizations connect into the same channel. So it makes that integration, that communication so much easier, so much more efficient, so much more streamlined. And I think companies are starting to see the value of this. Essentially what Slack has done has come in, it's replaced email with kind of a social media type platform, and their customers are loving it. So guys, it's clear I see potential here with Slack, with the different things that they're doing. But what are my plans for this stock? Am I buying Slack? So I did in fact open a position in Slack almost 2 weeks ago now, and we're up around 7% on that position already. Right now, since Slack is so new in my portfolio, it is my smallest position, but I do plan to build on this over the coming weeks and months at these current prices. Now, if you do want to know exactly when I buy more Slack or what other stocks I'm buying, what my portfolio looks like, consider joining our VIP group, link in the description down below. Trust me guys, there's a ton of value in there. You get access to Discord chat, live updates with everything that I'm looking at in the markets. So give it a try, check it out, see if you like it. But anyways, where do I really see Slack fitting in my portfolio? I'll say this, I don't think that Slack is going to be like a top 5 position for me or kind of one of my top holdings, just because, yeah, while they do have that segment of the market, they're the number 2 player in the space, and typically my largest holdings are not number 2 players, they're the leaders, the number 1 players. That being said, because I see the potential in the market for Slack, I still want to have this as a decent sized position in my portfolio, probably towards kind of like the middle of my portfolio, which would result in a sizable position for me. Slack has been seeing some phenomenal growth, and we'll continue to see this in my mind for many, many more years to come as more companies realize the benefits of Slack and they choose to go with Slack over the competition. And like I mentioned before, as these companies become larger, Slack benefits from this and increases their revenue. They also recently turned cash flow positive, which is something I think the market is overlooking right now. And this is trending higher very strongly, which tells me that as they keep scaling, they have a strong model that works and profits will eventually roll in. That being said, net income is still negative. However, free cash flow trending positive is a good sign, and I think will result in a bright future for this company. So really, why are people so afraid of investing in Slack today? I think it really comes down to just them having $1 trillion giant as a competitor. It's the same effect you see with Amazon when they enter a new market, right? Like recently Amazon announced they're entering pharmacy, and pretty much any stock related to pharmacy dropped drastically. But we've seen this happen time and time again. Amazon announced, hey, we're buying Whole Foods, we're entering that space. You see Kroger and all these other grocery stores drop, but they eventually recover and they're still around today and they're doing just fine. So I think certain markets, certain things, it makes sense to have multiple players in. And like I said, because of the approach of the open and closed ecosystems between Slack and Teams, it really provides a huge differentiator between these two companies. And I honestly don't think that Microsoft's ever going to go completely open here, because they want everyone to use all of their products and only their products. So that gives Slack a really good opportunity to be the strong number 2 in the space, provide the value with third-party integration with open source. And hey, if Android and iOS told us anything, there's a market for both types of ecosystems. Just remember, Netflix is a standalone company, but they're competing with trillion-dollar giants, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Video. They're even competing with Disney Plus now, but they're still doing just fine. Look at Spotify, that's a smaller company. They're competing with Amazon Music, Google Music, Apple Music, trillion-dollar companies. Spotify's doing just fine. I think that these smaller, newer companies are able to focus on one thing really well, and they're able to do it much better than these large companies that have their focus all over the place. And because of that, it creates opportunity for us when we see stocks like Slack beaten down because everyone's afraid of Microsoft. And guys, I've seen this time and time again. I think this is a buying opportunity in Slack. So right now, I think Slack is providing us good value. I think over time, this can be a $100+ billion company. It will take time for it to build up to there, but but as they build that core customer base that just absolutely loves Slack, they advocate for Slack, and whenever they change organizations, they try to get that company to switch over to Slack. I think that's powerful, and I think that's going to be a major sticking point for this company going forward. Guys, let me know your thoughts down below. I know many of you are against this company because of Teams, but I'd like to hear if this video actually opened up your mind a bit to realize, hey, maybe there is room for both these players in this space. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.